Welcome to A Bit of Insight, where we explore how to live well, travel far, and inspire others along the way. I'm your host, Lisa Mosby, and if you're ready to design a life you don't need a vacation from, you're in the right place. What happens when a man takes the skills he once used to survive and turn them into tools to help young people succeed? We're going to find out today on A Bit of Insight. I'm Lisa Mosby, and today's conversation is about second chances, youth opportunity, and what it really takes to help young people build a future they can believe in. My guest is Clement Benedict, founder and CEO of LearnEdge Unlimited, doing business as the Role Initiative. Clement's work is focused on creating pathways to success for all youth, especially underserved urban youth who need practical life skills, career readiness, and people in their corner who understand what's at stake. Clement brings powerful life experience to the conversation today. As a formerly incarcerated entrepreneur, he has watched the very skills he once used in the wrong direction become transformed into tools for leadership, service, and impact. Today, we'll talk about theory of change, reentry after incarceration, youth workforce development, and why preparing young people for life is not just a program, it's a responsibility. Welcome, Clement. Thank you so much for joining me. That was a long introduction, long time for you to wait for it, but we're here.
No worries, no worries. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. And you know what? I'm going to start with a really easy question.
Sure.
Not, here it is. How hard was it to be so vulnerable and share your story in service to others?
Oh, wow. So it was very hard, right? Hearing a story of being formerly incarcerated may go well in certain communities, because the tides have shifted and now we're really getting into to helping reentry. But at the time I was sharing my story, or living my story, it wasn't so glamorous. People are looking like, okay, yeah, you're changing, but this is the worst thing you've ever done. And like, that's horrible, sort of thing. So it's very hard to share the story because you're scared that somebody's going to judge you for the worst thing you ever did versus judge you for the change that you've gone through since you've done that thing.
And how did that feel when you were going through it? What inspired you to keep going? Because I don't think a lot of people would. In fact, I know a lot of people have quit once they start getting some negative feedback or judgment or just pushback. How were you inspired to keep going?
Um, Inspired, not being broke. The best way
Fair.
not, you know, I'm an only child, so I can't say I was scared of loneliness and scared of being alone. I was alone most of my life. I grew up in a three adult parent household and they all worked. So I came home to myself. Um, it was really, I have, at the time, it was just my two daughters. And I just couldn't face being the stereotype. It just it wouldn't go well with me. The stereotype of being the deadbeat dad, the stereotype of being the broke guy, the stereotype of just throwing my life away because life beat me down and I felt like somebody had their foot on my neck and I was too chicken to fight back. I'm sorry, I'm not a quitter. So I just had to do what I had to do. Some of it was good, some of it was bad, but just the will to keep living and to be someone. Because in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be remembered as somebody who contributed positively to life rather than this guy was a strain, he was a drag, he just
Yeah.
took everything. I don't want anything from anybody. If I'm going to get it, I'm going to earn it. So I guess that was my inspiration.
And what a beautiful inspiration it is. I've often heard you talk about how the skills you once used for wrong um, become used for good. What did that transition look like in real life?
Okay, so in real life, I would say the same skills that you use to do interviews, right? Because you
Mhm.
interview people.
I do, yeah.
they're the same skills that you use to have a conversation with somebody about something that you want, right? So in an interview, you're going to direct the question to get a certain answer. And then you're going to strategically place your words in a certain place so that you can evoke that answer. There is no difference in doing that in an interview and doing that in a drug deal. It's all the same stuff. So transmuting these skills is not so much about what the skills are. It's more so about how you're using these skills. So if I want to manipulate somebody into thinking that, hey, I'm bigger than I am in the drug games, I'll probably bring a whole bunch of cash, put a bunch of hundreds in front of it and a bunch of ones in between and in the back. And while I'm talking, when I flash the cash, I'll make sure you see the hundreds, and I'll talk in big words. You know, instead of talking in 20 grams and 30 grams, I'll talk in 250 and 500 grams. Maybe you'll believe me. And if you do believe me on that chance, I transmuted those skills. Now, transmuting those skills into sales of a car. I sold cars for about 10 and a half years. So I had to use some of those skills in selling cars. And yes, please do not villainize salespeople. We're only trying to make a living. We're not scamming you. um, Either which way, um, if I'm speaking to somebody, my aim is to sell this car right here, right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. That might fly down in Florida or somewhere else. But in New York, you come in today, you leave today with the car. So I had to get creative. That's what you do. You get creative. Instead of, oh, I have a $4,000 rebate that I can give you. It's no, this car costs $2,000 over sticker price. However, what I can do is give you a $6,000 rebate. See how I just switched my words? I created $2,000 worth of value in less than a second if you buy it.
Yeah. I've been in sales my whole life. Thank you for defending salespeople as an entrepreneur. Same, yeah. People always like, you manipulate people. It's like, I really don't. You talk good. You're a fast talker. And it's like, no, my dad gave me the language at such a young age. I wasn't allowed to use words like can't or shouldn't. It was like, go out and do, and, try, forget it. He was little Yoda before Yoda even existed. There is no try. You go do it, girl. And,
Absolutely.
and that's exactly what you're talking about and how you support the youth of today. What do people misunderstand about formerly incarcerated individuals who are trying to rebuild?
Um, hmm, I
So
can't
much,
really,
I know.
I was going to say, I can't really pinpoint it to one thing.
Mhm.
But the one thing that I can say is prevalent with most people is fear, fear
Yeah.
of the unknown. It's the same thing across the board. I'm not going to take that job because I don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know unless you jump in there and do it. I'm not going to hire this guy because he has a criminal record, and I don't know if he's going to rob anybody in my establishment. Why would he do that? It's things like that. It's small little ticks. The stigmas go beyond certain places. Uh, People are incarcerated because they did something wrong. So now this is the punishment, right? So incarceration becomes, you're supposed to go and learn how to be a better person. That's where rehabilitation was supposed to come in, right? And the facility that you go to, you would think that's the facility that's going to give me the rehabilitation.
Yeah.
However, rehabilitation is for the individual. They send you to prison as a punishment. And then while you're in prison, you're punished again. So now when you come out of prison, you're being told, find a job, be a positive member of society. However, when you're out looking for a job, everybody is looking at the last thing you did. He just came out of prison, and he came out of prison for what? That? No, I'm not hiring that guy. He's not going to do that here. Why would he apply for a job to come and commit the worst thing that took years away from his life? Why would he do that? Why would you even think he would do that? You get what I'm saying?
I do,
It's
I do. And sometimes
it's
people have
like
to. If you have to put food on the table, and you don't have any money, sometimes you're even the best of us are forced into situations where we have to make life or death choices to survive.
right. And the the crazy thing about it is nobody knows how it feels until they're actually going through it.
Right.
And I've had these conversations with former politicians. I've had them with former bankers, and these are all people that I was incarcerated with, and they committed crimes, some involuntary, some voluntary. However, they never really understood what a person who's been incarcerated goes through re-entering society until it happened to them,
Hmm. And
you
some of
know.
those, it wasn't a life or death situation that brought them there. It was perhaps greed. I have no idea. I haven't interviewed any of
And
those folks,
some,
but
yeah, some
whatever
were
it
like,
was.
some were greed, some were even just as simple as an accident.
I
As
know.
an
I
accident.
never thought about it. I never thought about the accident piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how do you do that to somebody? It was an accident. I understand we have to take accountability for stuff, but it was an accident.
Right. Yeah. So let's move into the mission and how you are serving the community through the Role Initiative. I want to start with what I know that stands for something. Do you want to share with the audience what Role stands for before we jump in?
So role stands is an acronym for responsibility, opportunity, leadership, and empowerment. Um, Everybody in life has a role to play. That's kind of how we shape just the conversation about who you want to be. When you ask most youth, what do you want to be when you grow up? We get a bunch of different answers. Some are great, some not so great, you know. Um, but then when you ask them, okay, so how are you going to get there? That's when the deer caught in headlights stares start coming. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna just make a lot of money. I'm just okay, how? When you start asking the how question, it's like, I don't know. And we don't expect them to know. However, who's going to teach them? Who's going to guide them in that way? We have a society, and I don't down our society for the freedoms that we have. We have the freedom of speech, the freedom of choice. We have all of these freedoms. However, we still have rules, right? And with the freedoms that we have, we tend to go overboard, like apple pie. I love apple pie, right? Don't need to eat any other pie in the world. If you just gave me strictly apple pie, I would eat it. Give me a whole apple pie, I'll probably finish it in one sitting. But now, if you keep giving me apple pies, sooner or later, I'm going to get sick.
Done. Yeah.
And that's what we do with our freedoms. I'll give you a little bit of this. All right, it's nice. Every now and then I'll dip into it. But with our freedoms, we start imposing them. And then we start, no, you gotta like it. And it's no, I don't have to like it. No, yes, you have to like it. So when it becomes that, how do we get our youth to understand that this is part of life? You want to be something, you have to learn how to be that thing, and then you become that thing. How do we get them to do that? And when I say youth, I'm talking about at-risk youth, because I do service all youth, but my role initiative is really targeted to those urban city at-risk youth that are in the trenches, you know.
Yeah, the beauty of your program as I went through the website and all of the different things that you're doing is you could actually help adults, young adults. You could help those of us going through transition, life changes, and wanting a new chapter in our life. What you've created and built actually speaks to everyone. And I understand the focus of the Role Initiative is the young person, but I encourage other people to just take a look at what you're doing because this may be something that folks want to support. When a young person enters your program or your circle of influence, what are they missing most often that you're trying to bring to them? Is it confidence, direction, skills, support, exposure, or belief systems? What is it? How do you approach those youth?
Boils down to experience, right?
Yeah.
Sounds really weird, but it does. It boils down to experience. When you go to get a job, they don't give you the job because you have no experience. But if you don't get the job, how do you get the experience? So, youth, I was a latchkey kid. So,
Mhm.
experience in our era was a thing. Like, I'm home by myself. My parents, they're where they are, and they're not going to be back. So, explore, explore, explore. I'm outside. I'm over here. I'm there. I'm everywhere. But I got to be home at a certain time because if not, I'm in trouble. These kids don't want to explore. They're exploring technology, which is not a bad thing. However, when you have the real thing and the fake thing, the lines aren't supposed to blur. It's like, okay, I can do this for a little while. Like we played video games in the house, played a few video games for about 2, 3 hours. Now it's time to go outside. I got to play basketball, stickball, football, running around, tag, manhunt, all of that stuff. With these kids, it's like, and let me not say these kids, our new generation of youth became technology babies. So growing up, you're 2 years old, you're crying, you're crying. I'm trying to cook, I'm trying to do all of this. What is the most convenient thing for me to do? Give
TV,
you the
telephone.
tablet. Yes, here you go. And then this wonderful thing comes along called Coco Melon and Baby Shark. And all of these kid shows that before used to be a full activity are now prompts and touching screens. And so, is it keeping them engaged? Absolutely. Keeping them interactive? Absolutely. Teaching them? Maybe. But one thing it definitely is disconnecting them, disconnecting them from this interaction. Even this interaction is a little bit of a disconnect.
Yeah.
If we were sitting live, it would have been a different thing. Like we see each other, we're going through the motions together. So I think with the advance of technology, we are losing the actual human experience, of connecting with one another in the natural ways that we do.
And what you're really talking about is foundational life skills.
Yeah,
What are we seeing? What are we missing? What foundational life skills do young people need that schools and even their first jobs, life systems are overlooking? What foundational life skills can we give them?
the life skills that you learn at home,
Yeah.
uh, communication, you know, love, respect, involvement, community, all of those things start in the home. And nowadays we don't have that. It's separate. It's so separate. Even within families, you have families that are like, yeah, I have a brother and a sister, and you're like, well, I've known you for 10 years, and this is the first time you mentioning a brother and a sister. And it's like, yeah, we don't really talk that much. Why? Why are you not connected? So, not to, for lack of better phrase, back in the days, right?
Yeah. We were born in the 1900s.
Right. I wasn't there, but history, you read it, you're aware of the mistakes that were made and how we got to where we are now. Family was a big thing. Passing down what you know and learned was a big thing. I just don't see it being that big of a thing anymore. It's more so of just find what's trending and jump on that bandwagon and let's do that. Ice bucket challenges. And I mean, just really think about it. You're not getting paid for this. So you're taking a challenge. I know people say, oh, it's in support, but why brutalize yourself to support people? I'm
Right.
going to take a big bucket of ice. I'm not a sports athlete. So I don't take ice baths because my muscles are aching from me actually being a machine on the field or on the court. No, I'm just a regular Joe Schmo, and I'm going to record myself dumping a bucket of water and ice on me in support of what? Send them $1, send them $2. That'll go somewhere.
Yeah. We
I
can
just
affect
think that
change.
I think and this is going to sound crazy because I am not quote unquote a well learned individual with letters behind my name and stuff, but human society, I believe, is regressing.
Yeah. We are
Yeah,
seeing that in so many ways with our youth. We are.
yeah, they're younger and younger.
Hmm.
Crimes, not just crimes, like just being a system involved, all of these different things. It's crazy. The
And
Knicks just
I
won the
don't want to be totally
championship. I'm like,
negative on that,
yes.
Clement, because there are advantages to this. I mean, I have
Yeah.
13 great nieces and nephews in Florida, and they are so smart. Like, I was not as smart as them at their ages because they have access to so much information. But I also was more of a peace and calm person because I was outside and I was playing in nature. And I applaud their mom. They go to the park every day with the youngsters. The older kids are, they're booted outside. But they love their technology, and their dad is in network security, and so he sits at the computer a lot. So all of them are extremely talented when it comes to digital technology, but they go to the beach regularly, they have hikes regularly. So it's parenting, but when and primarily the folks that you're working with are urban, and so we don't necessarily have those same available things to do. Like, there are parks in the city, but do kids really get out and do that? Do they go play tag? Is there a security issue or safety issue for letting our youth outside without guarding them and being there? With them, you and I, we probably, we were out at as soon as the sun came up until at night, and it was dark outside. And I had transportation. I had a bike. I could go miles and miles and miles away from home, and parents never knew where we were. But so part of it is culture, part of it is technology. You often talk about the theory of change, um,
Yes.
that it's one of your key topics. How do you define that in your work, and what are you seeing in our culture?
Um, so seeing in the culture and defining it in my work, um, we as a people need to change the way we're moving forward, right? Um, Technology is not our highest level of advancement. And that's what I think is starting to happen. So, and when I say my theory of change, how do you get people to look at you in a different light from where you were before, right? How do you even change who you are so that you can be where you want to be? It and that's what breaks down into our role acronym, right? First, you got to take responsibility for who you are, what you know, what experiences you've already had, what experiences you want to have, what you've done in your life. You have to take responsibility for your cause and effect. You are where you are because you brought yourself there. Not saying that things don't happen to people, but it's not what happens, it's how you respond to it that really matters. Then opportunity. You have to seek it. It's not going to fall out of thin air, and I tend to see that trend happening. It's like, I'll know it when I see it, and it'll just happen, and I'm just going to let it come to me. You're just going to let poverty come to you. I don't know what else you're waiting on. So I'm like, wait, I'm sorry. What are you waiting on? Poverty? Like, I'm just going to wait here, and it's going to happen for me. No, you have to go out there and get it. Something as simple as writing a resume. I knew how to write a resume at 14 because not only were my parents like, this is what you need to succeed in life after you turn 18. You want to sit here and talk about, I can't wait till I turn 18 and I can move out. And my parents always asked me, how? How? Before they asked me why. That was in my growing up phase before I hit adolescence. Once I hit adolescence and I started making these bold claims, the question shifted from why to how, because it doesn't matter why anymore. Now it matters how, because you said you're going to do it on your own, right? So I don't want to know why you want to do it anymore. I want to know how you're going to get it done. And the how will stump people all the time because the best laid out plans, you can chat GBT it, put it on Manus, you can dole it out, you can have tons of experience. That doesn't mean it's going to go that way. It might go a different way. You have to build contingency. So back to what I was saying, experience. These kids need to experience life, and not just the things that we ruminate about when we're in our teen years. Of what we're thinking about. We're thinking about all the things we're not supposed to be thinking about. So
Experience gives us the skills, the life
yes,
skills that we need. It gives us those life skills.
exactly
So,
what
in
it
the
does.
theory of change, real quick, what has to change first? The young person, the environment around them, or the opportunities available to them?
None of that stuff.
None of that stuff. Okay.
The mindset.
The mindset.
How
I
a
knew you'd
person
catch me.
Yeah. How a person thinks determines where that person's trajectory is going to go.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a criminal. That's why I went to prison. When I started thinking like a father that was ashamed of the things that he did, I started becoming a different person. Now I'm not making decisions based off of I got to provide, and the only way I can provide is if I do these nefarious things because the man won't give me a chance because I did this in my past and it wasn't even my fault. That's the loop of the story that people start to tell themselves sometimes. And then next thing you know, you box yourself into the position of doing nefarious things for financial gain. But when you make the decision to, I'm not doing that anymore. And I don't care. I'd rather be broke and I'd rather everybody make fun of me than to sacrifice my freedom, sacrifice my dignity, my integrity to go and do something so I can gain a few dollars. It's not even worth it because the gain you gain can be taken away the very next day.
Mhm. Yeah, I think environment is an influence here because obviously we both grew up in completely different environments, different. I was in the country, you're in the city. There's so many differences, and a big part of that for me is how my dad raised me. The words, if he would not allow us kids to say the word can't, I can't, and he's like, oh yes, you can. We're gonna go do it right now. I'm gonna prove to you that you can.
Right.
He had me listening to motivational speakers, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Earl Nightingale, Tony Robbins, all of these people in kindergarten, in first grade, when he would take me, because he was feeding his mind. I was in the truck when he was going to work. He's dropping me off in kindergarten in first grade. They bought me something called Hooked on Phonics, and I got to bring it to school and share it with the kids and teach language and enunciation when I was in kindergarten. My leadership was inbred in me by the opportunities that they created. So,
Yeah.
yes, they gifted me that mindset, that positivity that a lot of people see in me, but they also created the opportunities for me. And I think they're all tied together in a sense, but mindset
Yes.
does have to shift before you can seize those opportunities.
Right. And if you don't shift your mindset, then you're just doing things to just get over. That's how I look at it, right? Because first shifting your mindset now creates this is my direction. Next thing you do is you fill it up with a bunch of skills if you don't have them already. And if you do have them, you look for companion skills that will help you to get further. So, what we did at the Role Initiative is pretty much put all of that together. So, as I spoke about opportunity, we move on to leadership. What's the best way to lead? You got to lead by example. You got to show people this is where I'm going, this is the results, and people will follow. But we have a lot of kids that are following an example that they believe is leadership, but when you ask them what is the ultimate goal, they won't tell you. And it's messed up being running around with a gang or being a former gang member. I don't like to glorify that in any kind of way, but however, when you ask them, so what's the end goal? Like, what are we doing? We're just being the most positive, destructive, and whatever we can be. Okay, so I get that. All right, so what rewards do I get? It's like the rewards don't even make sense, but yet they're following. And then if their mindset was different, they would see. Because once I changed my mindset, I started to look at it like, okay, so no pension, If I'm late on my rent, I can't call any of the homies to, give me some dollars so I can pay rent. I threw a baby shower. They come with bottles of liquor and marijuana, like no gifts for the baby. It's like, well, what am I doing this for? Like, what are we really doing here? You would tell me to leave an education at school to go to another person's school where they're getting an education to beat them up because you guys had an argument and you don't like his views and he's in a different gang from us and we don't like their views. So this is what we're going to do and call it a great day.
Yeah. What is one belief that you want to interrupt in these youngsters today before it becomes a life pattern?
We're not at war.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one belief I want to take out of their minds.
Mm-hmm.
In the inner city, especially with the gangs and stuff, it becomes like they're suiting up to go to war, like they're deploying to go into the battlefield. And it makes me wonder, like, what are we fighting for?
Yeah.
Because nobody's really making any money off of it. People are actually spending money, funerals, doctor visits. Innocent people are getting hurt. You know, what is, like I said, what is the end goal? What is the end goal?
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to turn into a police force where you're keeping your neighborhood safe? Because from what I understand, that's what it started about, keeping the neighborhood safe from other people who are oppressing the neighborhood. But now we're just oppressing each other, you know?
Yeah, yeah. How do you measure transformation in a young person before the world sees the results?
Um, it's kind of hard to say. The best way to measure is to just witness, you
Yeah,
know, you'll see it
yeah.
where they were making bad decisions before and they'll start spitting the stuff at you that you've been talking to them for a while. So there's a very intricate key to how we do things at the Role Initiative. And we use a lot of evidence-based practices and trauma-informed care to get these things done because trauma is a real thing. It's real for everyone. We go through traumas all the time. Being unemployed, you're going through trauma right there.
Yep.
I lost my job. I don't know what to do. I have a safety cushion of unemployment, but that runs out. You're on unemployment for about a year. You have to recertify. If you don't qualify, you're on the outs. That's another traumatic situation. Thinking about how you're going to feed your family when you're making a fraction of what you used to make before. All of this is traumatic while you're trying to look for another job, raise a family, be a good friend, a husband, a wife, or all of these things. You're going through tons of trauma. And now when you get a job, you're relieved. But did you deal with all of that trauma? Kids
Sweep it under
come
the
through,
rug.
yeah, youth go through traumatic situations, and now it's getting even worse. Um, the most traumatic situations youth are going through is their friends being killed because now there's a whole word to my dead saying. And I'm starting to think to myself, like, why are youth so enthusiastic to have dead friends? It's I'm just raw when I say things, and that's just how I see it. That's my perception of it. You know,
And it's
I
part of
watch.
the music. It's, we they hear it and they talk about it. And I don't know if they necessarily want that to happen. Sometimes when we express things in music, it's the pain that they're trying to get out and try to release some of that trauma. It's part of why people listen to music. They're looking for it to lift you up. But when we're singing about the pain and the sorrow, like country music or some rap songs, it doesn't always lift us up. It takes us in deeper. So, how do we shift that? How do we change that? And I know that's what you're doing with the Role Initiative. Another topic that you often talk about is workforce development. when you talk
Yes,
about youth workforce development, are you talking about jobs, or are we talking about identity, discipline, communication, or the possibility or opportunity available?
all of it, all of the above,
Okay.
everything. The reason why I say that is because after you graduate high school, you go on to college. What's the next step for anyone? Work. Whether
Life,
you're an
getting into it.
entrepreneur, yeah,
Mhm.
whether you're an entrepreneur, you work for somebody, you're working, you're gonna work, and you need to know how to do that. Does college teach you that? No. People will say, yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. Basic education from K to 12, everything that you learn there, do you take it on into life? Absolutely. But how much money are you really going to make off of the history of America? You learn it to know it because you should know where your origins are, but we don't use any of that stuff. So teaching it year after year and expanding on it year after year more and more, I get it. It's our history, but we can go and read that. We can go look that up. What we actually need to know is how do we, look at that history and don't repeat it?
Yeah.
How do we create new, innovative ways to not repeat the mistakes of old? And how do we not create new mistakes, trying not to create or recreate the mistakes of old? Uh, so kids need to learn about their next step in life, and most of that was taught by parents, but now with inflation and money, all over the place, instability of economies, world politics going haywire, we don't know what's what. And that stuff is getting lost. So now you have parents that are working two jobs. So now their kids are turning into latchkey kids, but they're not even latchkey kids because this parent is just working those two jobs. They might send them here, send them there, but then you have, well, in New York, it's ACS barreling down on you. You need to be there for your child. But then you have society barreling down on you like, hey, you need, cost of living is this, and you need to pay rent. So it's like, what decision do you make? The decisions are being taken away from us. So now we have to get even more creative, seek more opportunities, and we have to figure it out, but we have to figure it out in a better fashion.
So, Clement, what roles do mentors, employers, and maybe local business play in creating these real pathways?
As partners, as volunteers, this work is really intentional about getting the youth experience in the different opportunities that are out there,
Yeah.
and those professionals are doing what it is, leading by example. This is what leadership looks like. And then from that, it turns into empowerment because now these kids are going to feel like I have a direction. I mean, when I was young, I loved the movie Top Gun, right?
Yeah.
Tom Cruise thought he was cool as hell riding that motorcycle down the runway. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And I was like, yes, I got to be in the plane. I went and bought toy planes. I flew them around the house. Everything, right? And then I had to find out the how because I kept talking about it. And as I said, my family was a how family. And they said, all right, so you want to know how? I'll show you how. And they went through, you got to go in the military. You got to join either the Navy or the Air Force, and you got to do thousands of hours of flight school, and then you have to do zero G training and all of G force trainings, and you have to be deployed for. And I said, wait, what? Just to fly planes and look cool with the glasses? I said, no, 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 no. I don't want to do that. I'm good. I'm good. I'm all right. Yeah, that's cool. You know what I'll be? I will be a doctor or lawyer, whatever you guys wanted me to be, because that was the thing in my family. You're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, right? Found out didn't like blood. I can't. I can look at my own blood, but if somebody else is bleeding, I won't panic because innate in me is to save your life. But after I save your life, I'm gonna go somewhere and have a moment. I'm gonna freak out.
I know I'm going down.
I'm a freak out. But and I saw I couldn't do that. The one thing that I knew I could do and I loved to do was cars. So I did everything bad with cars before I started doing good things with cars, but I did a lot with cars. And, it led me to this work because with the things that I did with cars, I had to learn how to speak to people, be personal, so this is where I'm at now.
Love it. If a business owner is listening and wants to help, what's one practical place for them to start?
Um, Go to our website. We have a volunteer application, a little bit lengthy, but we ask because we want to know the skills that you can create opportunities in for the youth. A lot of youth want to know things. They want to know a lot of things. Like, aside from the work that I do with the role, I'm also a youth counselor for a nonprofit organization, and I work in a group home. And these are the same things that I have, these discussions that I have with these kids. A lot of them want to do this stuff, but they're embarrassed that they don't already know it. It's that I need to know it now and I should already know it. So if I don't know it, I'm just going to shy away from it. So they
Mhm.
avoid it.
Yeah. What do you now tell young people who remind you of your younger self?
Um, I tell them stop being so fearful.
Ooh,
Fear is also an acronym, right? Fear is false evidence appearing real.
yeah.
We talk ourselves out of opportunities all the time. If I could call myself anything, I would call myself the great self-saboteur. Because
No,
I'm just
don't
telling
do
you that
it.
that's what I was. That's what I
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
I know it's good for me. I know I can do it, but I'll give you a million excuses and reasons why. Oh, nobody will ever think I can do that. I probably won't even be good at it. They probably won't make me any money. Yeah, I hear you, but all because I don't want to, I just want to do something else rather than just saying, you know what? It looks like that's good, but I'm just not ready to do that right now.
Not for me.
Yeah. Because the next question out of that is why? It was the fear of my parents' questions coming back at me. Logic, facing logic, being responsible, accountability. You know, those are those are not earned experiences. Those are learned experiences, but you earn so much more from them.
You do, yeah. Here's where I want to wrap it up today, Clement. What
Sure.
does success look like for the Role Initiative 5 years from now?
Ooh. Um, well, hopefully in all 50 states. One of my favorite movies is The Founder. Michael Keaton, I believe, played Ray Kroc, right? And
Oh,
Ray
I don't think I've
Kroc,
seen it.
yeah, that's the movie about McDonald's. Ray Kroc,
McDonald's, yes.
yes. So it's a phenomenal movie. You'll love it. He
Okay.
was a travel salesman, and he took no no's for an answer. You tell him no, no problem. He's going to find another angle. So I would say, yeah, you just got to get out there, do it, expose yourself, you know, just do it like Nike.
Just
I
do
hope they
it.
don't take me for copyright infringement.
No, no, no. We like their slogan. It's through appreciation and admiration that we use their name.
Absolutely, because they got it right. They got it
Yeah,
absolutely right.
for sure. Clement, thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, the work that you're doing through the Role Initiative. This conversation reminds us that transformation is possible, but it also reminds us that opportunity has to be created with intention. When young people are equipped with life skills, direction, and the belief that they matter, they do not just change their own future, but they change the families, communities, and generations to come. So, uh, thank you again. And, folks, that's what we believe here at A Bit of Insight. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you want to be of support to the Role Initiative, please go to the website. That information will be in our notes section. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, live well, travel far, inspire others, and keep looking for the places where your story can become someone else's pathway forward. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on A Bit of Insight. To get more involved with our wellness community, grab a copy of my book, Live Well, Travel Far, or to explore our travel offerings, visit the website at insightcenterforwellness.com. And if today's episode gave you something to think about, leave a review and please share it with a friend. This is Lisa Mosbey reminding you to live well, travel far, and always follow your insight.